Well, let's start with a little thought experiment, shall we? So, if you at home somehow time traveled back 20 years to 2005 and walked around in public, based on what you're wearing, would anyone around you know that you were from the future? The answer is probably not. And that's, I think, because the culture has stagnated. We don't have shifting fashion trends or new hairstyle trends. Things have pretty much stayed the same for the last couple of decades, and time is kind of slowed to a stop. And the internet has a lot to do with that. This TikToker made a video illustrating this point. We have stereotypes from each decade of the 20th century and the radical changes that took place between them in fashion especially.
Okay.
And we have no such stereotypes these days compared to back then.
So do you want to? Should we watch the video first? The TikTok. Yeah. So, all right, let's watch this video, guys. Volume up. Here we go.
Why have people looked the same for the last 20 years? Like, if you go back and watch the first episode of The Office, that was filmed in 2004, you don't look at them and say, oh my gosh, look at those hairstyles and those clothes. But if you went back...
Actually, if I look at Jim's hairstyle, I absolutely think that. I think he's wrong about that.
In any previous decade, you would. Like, 1970s guy is a Halloween costume you can get on Amazon right now with the bell bottoms and the perm. If a character showed up in a movie set in the 1980s dressed like that, you would think they were in a Halloween costume, and that's just 10 years later. And if you're going to say, well, yeah, but that's movies, that's not realistic, I am telling you, when I was growing up in the 1980s, I remember looking in a photo album of my parents from 10 years before, from the 1970s, and all of us just laughing our heads off at the outfits and the hair. And you can go by decade. If you ask somebody my age to visualize the 1950s, we will close our eyes and picture something like this. Then if you ask us to picture the 1960s, you will get something radically different. If you were to switch the two, they would look like they were on the wrong planet. I am, of course, not the first person to notice this. There's a viral Twitter thread just yesterday where they were looking at video footage from 2002 and saying that could have been shot yesterday, and pointing out that the only signifier of which era you're in is what kind of phones they're using and how big the monitors are on their desks. Is there any explanation for this?
Okay.
So like the guy that was on the live show, Tim's live show today, Lindy Man, he's the one that popularized the term stuck culture.
Oh, he was here today?
He was like called in for the live show.
Oh,
yeah.
Funny.
Paul
Scalise is his name?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like I actually kind of push back on the stuck culture idea because I think the big thing is it's just a perspective thing. So if you're older, like if you ask someone who was born in 1920, they would lump the 70s and 80s and 90s together. They wouldn't view time in that way. So I think like when I think I can tell instantly what era a photograph was taken in by the fashion and hair. Like I think there's a massive difference between the Y2K look and then the millennial we are young 2010s look. Like there's actually massive. It's just we saw it happen, so it's like you observe it and then you look back in time and see the obvious. But I think if you're a lot older, it all blends together. Like if you ask my dad, he's not gonna be able to tell the difference between a photo in 2004 and now.
For instance, like, okay, so when I was in high school, everybody wore Old Navy jeans with like carpenter jeans.
Yeah.
Now, if you saw somebody wear that, it's either a Gen Zer trying to be like
I'm wearing carpenter jeans
retro
right now.
ironic, or it's somebody who looks like he's been wearing that same pair of carpenter jeans for the last 20 years. It's not something you think of as being intrinsically connected to fashion of the time now, even if people are wearing it. When I think of men's fashion now, for instance, it's tapered pants, right? They don't like, if you're wearing baggy pants per se, it's a fashion trend of the next generation. But when they show The Office, that's office workwear. It's supposed to be indicative of what you wear to the office, and men's fashion at the office hasn't changed because rules of decorum for an office environment are the same as they were 20 years ago. Women make more statements with their office attire than men do. Men meet the lowest grade of what they need to be considered professional for their work life, and then that's where that ends.
Yes.
You wear the jacket. You wear if you have to wear a suit, you have to wear a suit. Otherwise, you wear a button-up shirt and a tie.
Like they're taking like in the TikTok, he's like showing pictures of like celebrities from the 70s and 80s. It's like, yeah, because they were on the forefront of fashion, and that's the same way it is now. But if you do a street shot, there's a very strong dividing line. There was a dividing line right around Y2K where people went from formal wear in public to casual wear in public. That's the dividing line.
The thing I said to you before, I was like, look, the society died when we stopped putting buttons on pants.
Yes.
Because everybody got fat.
It's literally just the introduction of polyester is what destroyed fashion.
So when I was in my mid-20s, so we're talking like the late 2000s, and everybody started wearing skin-tight jeans, right? And ironic T-shirts. I don't see ironic T-shirts anymore.
Right.
Like, if you wore an ironic T-shirt now, you got it at the Goodwill. And the other one, if you want to watch old TV shows, American Apparel hoodies with the white lining on the zipper.
Yes.
You don't see those anymore.
Aeropostale going down the side. Like, it's very, like, that's why Y2K is a defined... like fashion style. So it's like Zoomers are able to emulate it to a T because it was defined enough where they can capture that and be like, okay, that's a Y2K outfit.
Somebody in the chat mentioned Carhartt. Carhartt is for limousine liberals now.
Right. So in 20 years, whatever generation that is, what is it, like beta or something, they're going to be able to emulate the We Are Young 2010s fashion. There's going to be a tinge of irony, but yeah, there's a clear... It's very obvious. Like, I don't understand this debate, and Lindyman talks about it all the time, and I'm like, no, I think fashion is still progressing. Like, there's still like the decades. Maybe I agree that like culture generally is breaking down, but fashion, like, I see huge differences between 2005 and now.
I do agree that at least in the 2010s to now, men's hairstyles have basically stopped evolving. Other than the broccoli haircut, which became like an offshoot of just people getting fades.
I don't think so, because I think like the skin fade was huge at the end of the 2010s, going to the early 2020s. Like, an easy indicator is you look at soccer players, because they have celebrity barbers that are on the forefront of taste, and the haircuts have evolved massively. Like at the end of the 2010s into the early 2020s, men all had skin fades, they kept it high and tight, that sort of thing. And now it's, again, you're leaving scissor cut on the sides, that sort of thing. It's like, even with that, it seems to be progressing. There seems to be evolutions. Maybe it's not as dramatic as people want, but in 20 years, when you're looking back, you will see the difference.
Yes. Okay. So I guess more what I'm saying is, like, when I look at him here, when you look at his character, it's the same haircut that Chuck had in the show Chuck, which is like, it's unkempt and just looks like he lets it grow to that length. And then it's like hockey hair for somebody who plays hockey in high school, where it's like, the swoop. Justin Bieber hair.
Yeah, but if you saw that around in public now, it's not like you would look at that and think, oh, that's so 2005.
I would.
Absolutely. I saw someone of the Justin Bieber swoop. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. It's not like standing out, but I'd be like, oh yeah, that gets a very old haircut.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Lindyman, because he presented two explanations for stuck culture. One is, we lived in a 20th century media monoculture where the culture changed every decade from the top down through a handful of radio stations, television stations, Hollywood, and fashion houses. Then the internet came along in 2005 and decentralized everything. Small groups online have innovated and changed, but the big media monoculture has stayed the same because the current model makes money, and why change it? Why risk it? Not everyone is going along with you like the previous century where people had no choice. And then the second one, which I find more compelling, is algorithms. This was the argument. I think culture got stuck when algorithms took over. The entire basis of recommendation algorithms is to predict what you'll like in the future based on what you liked before. This informs the worldview of all media players top to bottom and created a cultural infinite loop.
Yeah, that's 100% the case with monoculture. Like we were talking about earlier at the VMAs, where, it's getting harder and harder to be rebellious. It's because, like, when Shia LaBeouf wore a paper bag that says "I'm not famous anymore," that was like a rebellion against the monoculture that existed at the time. But now that the monoculture's like, not relevant, or it's not powerful, it's sputtering out, then how do you be rebellious against it? Because everything's so decentralized. It's like there's no power to challenge.
Well, also, like, fashion trends depended wildly on whatever subgenre or like subculture you were a part of. So skating fashion was vastly different than regular fashion when I was growing up, because skating fashion in my time was humongous sweatpants. Then it was like you slowly worked into like jeans that didn't make your legs look like they were this big.
Right.
And then eventually everyone went the complete opposite way, went to the skin tight jeans in the mid 2000s. Now it's all the same generic normcore
Right.
baggy jeans with a size medium shirt.
Medium.
And a medium shirt and stuff like that. So that's just one subculture, and every other sport, every other genre of music has their own subculture where it used to be able to define a specific look for that group.
I will concede that the changes in fashion are more nuanced than they were previously. Like 70s big afro and big eyeglasses frames to the 80s where everything's neon. Like, okay, they're not as dramatic, but like if someone was wearing a Supreme shirt, the box Supreme shirt, you'd be like, dude, it's 2025. Like, what are we doing here?
But I think that's the problem here. The fashion trends cycle so much faster than they used to, and something that was in
That's true.
last year literally is out the next year.
The 2010s
or
are
even month to
clearly like
month.
2 decades in one, where like the first half and the second half might as well have been 2 decades. So, I mean, I'll
because
concede
most
that.
of it you're observing on the internet instead of what you're observing in real life, and you get inundated with it to the point where you get sick of it way faster. And even if you can observe changes in fashion or hair trends more easily, I definitely think that music is stuck, and I definitely see that movies and entertainment is stuck. That's just, you see that everything is derivative now, and there's no sound difference between pop music today and pop music like 10 years ago.
I guess the difference is back then it would have been derivative as well, but now you have access to what it's derivative of, as opposed to back then a fashion choice which had been inspired by something less popular or less well known, where then people believe that this is why that this was the first to do this, when actually it was indicative of something else that came before it. Now you just can look all the way back to what it was indicative of, and there's no mystery there. Like what inspired it.
And like what you're saying, like the big what happened, what made that change happen, it's like what he talks about, where it's like the culture used to be top to bottom, and now it's bottom to up. So it's like with music, your tastes were effectively at the whim of your local radio DJ, where now it's just whatever you're into is on Spotify and you can listen to that. Where like I'll have it, like my cousin, he makes music and he has like millions of listeners on Spotify, and no one's ever heard of him because all of his listeners are in a very specific niche, where like there's really famous rock bands from the 80s that have the same amount of listeners and everyone knows who they are. So it's like, yeah, with the death of the radio DJ and with the death of MTV and the death of NBC, ABC, CBS, it's really hard to like find clear identifiable trends that are going to define a generation.
It's also why I disagreed with Tim when he said like there won't be any celebrities anymore. I'm like, no, they'll just be sectored off into their own.
There's not going to be any more
industry.
Tom Cruises. That's true.
But
like because monoculture died.
But it depends on what you mean by celebrity, right? Does celebrity mean by the amount of people that know them, or is it the idea that if a band has 20 million listeners on Spotify, but is known by everyone, but this guy has 20 million, followers on Spotify and nobody knows him. Functionally, he's still being listened to by 20 million people.
But we mean like we're not going to get that Michael Jackson level.
No, that's not. I mean, that was never going to happen after the internet.
In the 80s, if you had 20 million Americans listening to your music, you could sell out any stadium you wanted. Versus now, 20 million, and you're seeing these crises where they book arenas and they can't sell them out.
I don't know if Lindy Man would say this, but I do think it was legitimately a better situation to kind of have your tastes curated for you. I don't think that people are better off getting with the internet decentralizing all of these niche subcultures of subcultures. I think it was legitimately a better situation for you to just have your tastes like authoritatively passed down to
I 100% agree. I think it's like from a national perspective, it's very healthy for everyone to be on the same page.
More social
pop
cohesion.
culturally.
Yeah,
that's a healthy thing. That's a healthy thing to have not specifically, I'm just using this as like a stand-in for a famous person. It's healthy to have a Michael Jackson. It's healthy to have a Tom Cruise. Like you do need these unifying figures to define your pop culture. And like what you're seeing now, where everything's decentralized, no one's on the same page. That's when people devolve into subcultures. That's when you lose an understanding of, your people you bump into on the street.
I guess because I grew up as part of a subculture, it doesn't matter as much to me. But also, that was always going to be the path forward, since the internet became became a way to democratize your ability to get known.
But if you met another person in your subculture, you would all be on the same page.
Yes.
Versus now, if two skaters meet now, they're gonna have two completely different like Instagram feeds. And so it's you have more celebrities, but you have less A-listers now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's no one that they're going to be on that's been born after 2000 that's going to be on a movie and people are going to go through the turnstiles to see that person. That's just not how it works anymore. If Tom Cruise is on a movie, you go see it. It doesn't matter if everyone's panning it.
$63 million this weekend.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah, and with the exception of, I think, Only Sinners, every big, like, high-performing movie in the box office is a sequel, spin-off, or prequel, or what have you. There's nothing new.
There's nothing new. There's nothing big anymore, but think how many more content creators there are, which is just because people don't want to call themselves celebrities, but there's like so many more people producing content now than there was in the 2000s, 90s, 80s. But like the high tier, the upper echelon, the big box office, there's barely any of those nationwide. Everyone's like, wow, this is an amazing thing. We're losing that. I think it's kind of a sad thing.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.